In the secluded village of Black Pines, nestled deep within a forgotten forest, the nights were unnervingly silent. The villagers, descendants of an ancient line, lived in perpetual fear of the full moon. For generations, they had passed down tales of a curse that plagued their bloodline, a curse that manifested in a monstrous form, a werewolf. The curse began with Lord Edwin Thornfield, a nobleman who once ruled the village centuries ago. Edwin was a man of fierce ambition, obsessed with power and immortality. In his quest, he sought out a witch known for her dark magic, offering her riches beyond imagination in exchange for eternal life. The witch, however, warned him that immortality came at a steep price. Blinded by greed, Edwin agreed, sealing his fate. On the night of the next full moon, Edwin was transformed. His body twisted, his bones cracked, and his skin stretched painfully as he became a beast, a towering, ravenous werewolf. In his monstrous state, he slaughtered his own family and rampaged through the village, leaving a trail of blood and destruction. When the morning came, Edwin was human again, horrified by what he had done. But the curse was unbreakable, and each full moon, the transformation returned, more savage than before. The villagers, desperate to end the terror, sought the witch, begging her for mercy. She revealed that the curse could only be lifted by the death of the last surviving Thornfield, the one who would carry the full weight of the curse. But there was a cruel twist: if the cursed one died, the curse would pass to another, chosen by fate. Generations passed, and the curse continued to haunt the Thornfield descendants, each bearing the burden of the beast within. The current Thornfield, Alistair, was a man tormented by his lineage. He had spent years searching for a way to break the curse without condemning another innocent soul. His efforts had been in vain, and the full moon loomed ever closer. As the moon rose high in the sky, Alistair locked himself in the deepest cell of the old Thornfield manor, reinforced with iron chains and spales designed to hold the beast. But that night, the air was thick with an unnatural tension. The villagers whispered of a new darkness in the forest, of shadows that moved on their own, and of a strange, foreboding silence. When the moon reached its zenith, Alistair's transformation began. But this time, something was different. The pain was excruciating, more intense than ever before. His senses were heightened, and he could hear the beating hearts of every living thing in the village. His mind, usually lost to the beast during the transformation, remained agonizingly aware. As the beast took full control, Alistair felt a presence dark, malevolent, and ancient. The chains that had held him for years snapped like twine. The spales meant to contain him fizzled out. The werewolf, more powerful than ever, broke free. The beast roared, a sound that echoed through the village and beyond. But instead of rampaging through the village, it turned its gaze toward the forest. Something was calling it, drawing it deeper into the dark woods. Alistair's human mind, trapped within the beast, could only watch in horror as the werewolf raced through the trees faster than it had ever moved before. Deep in the heart of the forest, where the trees grew twisted and gnarled, the werewolf came upon an ancient stone circle, half buried in the earth. In the center stood a figure cloaked in shadow, with eyes that glowed like embers. "Welcome, Alistair Thornfield," the figure spoke, its voice dripping with malice. "The time has come for the curse to fulfill its true purpose." The werewolf growled, but the figure was unfazed. It stepped forward, revealing a face both familiar and horrifying. It was Edwin Thornfield, unchanged, his eyes burning with an unnatural fire. "The witch did not lie," Edwin sneered. "The curse would pass, but not to just anyone. It passes to me, and through me, to you. We are bound, Alistair, through blood and time. Together, we shall bring the curse to its full power, and this world will tremble before us." Alistair's mind reeled, but the beast was relentless, driven by a hunger that could never be sated. Edwin raised his hands, chanting in a language older than time. The air crackled with dark energy, and the stone circle began to glow with a sickly light. As the ritual reached its climax, the werewolf howled, a sound that shattered the night and sent a wave of terror through the village. The earth shook, and from the shadows, more figures emerged, werewolves, twisted and corrupted, drawn to the ancient power that Edwin had unleashed. The curse had evolved, no longer bound to the thornfields alone. It was spreading, infecting the land, and turning the cursed into an army of beasts. Alistair's last shred of humanity cried out, but it was drowned in the overwhelming tide of darkness. And so, the village of Black Pines fell into the grip of an unending nightmare. The curse, now a force of unimaginable power, spread beyond the village, reaching the world beyond. The werewolves, led by the malevolent spirit of Edwin Thornfield, began their reign of terror, leaving death and destruction in their wake. But in the darkest corners of the world, whispers began to circulate of a prophecy, of a way to end the curse once and for all. A small group of survivors, bound by fate, would rise to challenge the ancient evil, armed with knowledge long forgotten. But the path ahead was perilous, and the price of victory was steep. The story of Black Pines was far from over. The curse still loomed, its true purpose yet to be fully revealed. And as the full moon rose again, the world braced for the terror that would follow, knowing that the final battle between man and beast was drawing ever closer. But in the shadows, something even darker stirred, waiting for its time to strike. The end. The village of Black Pines had become a place of whispers and shadows, a cursed land where few dared to tread. The werewolves, now legion, roamed the forest by night, and the once proud Thornfield Manor stood in ruins, a haunting reminder of the darkness that had consumed it. But amidst the terror, a glimmer of hope remained small, faint, but undeniable. Far from the village, in the bustling city of Greywick, an ancient order known as the Silver Dawn had taken notice of the spreading curse. The Silver Dawn was a secret society dedicated to hunting and destroying dark entities, armed with centuries of knowledge and relics imbued with powerful magic. Their leader, a stern woman named Selene, had been tracking the rise of the curse with growing concern. Selene, a woman in her early 40s with silver-streaked black hair and piercing green eyes, had seen many horrors in her life, but the reports from Black Pines chilled her to the bone. She gathered her most trusted allies, a group of skilled hunters and scholars, to discuss their next move. "We cannot ignore this any longer," Selene said, her voice firm. "The curse of Black Pines is spreading. If we don't act now, it will consume everything in its path." "But how do we fight something so ancient, so powerful?" asked Elias, a tall, broad-shouldered man who had been with the Silver Dawn for nearly 2 decades. "The werewolves are multiplying, and Thornfield's spirit is stronger than ever." Selene's eyes narrowed as she unfurled an ancient map of the forest surrounding Black Pines. "There is a way," she said. "The witch who cursed the Thornfield line left behind more than just the curse. She left a weapon, a way to destroy the curse at its source. But it won't be easy to find, and even harder to use." The room fell silent as Selene pointed to a location deep within the forest, far beyond where any hunter had dared to venture. "The heart of the forest," she said. "It's said to be a place where the veil between worlds is thin, where the witch's power is strongest. If we can reach it and perform the ritual of severance, we can break the bond between Edwin Thornfield and the curse, severing its power." Elias exchanged uneasy glances with the others. "And what if we fail?" he asked. Selene's gaze was steely. "If we fail, there will be no turning back. The curse will consume us all." Despite the risks, Selene and her team prepared for the journey. Armed with silver weapons, enchanted talismans, and the knowledge passed down through generations, they set out for Black Pines, determined to end the curse once and for all. Meanwhile, deep in the cursed forest, Alistair Thornfield's human consciousness remained trapped within the werewolf, tormented by the dark power that had overtaken him. The presence of his ancestor, Edwin, was a constant, oppressive force, driving the beast to ever greater acts of cruelty. But something within Alistair refused to be silenced. A small, stubborn part of his humanity clung to hope, searching for a way to regain control. As the werewolf prowled the forest, Alistair's thoughts drifted to the stories his mother had told him as a child, stories of a hidden place in the forest where the witches of old had gathered, a place of immense power. In a rare moment of clarity, Alistair forced the beast to change course, guiding it through the twisted trees towards the heart of the forest. The journey was agonizing, with Edwin's spirit fighting every step of the way, but Alistair was relentless. He knew that if he could reach the heart, he might have a chance to confront his ancestor, to break free from the curse's grip. As the werewolf neared the heart of the forest, the air grew thick with magic, and the shadows deepened. The ancient stone circle came into view, glowing with the same sickly light as before. Edwin Thornfield's spirit awaited him, a cruel smile on his face. "You cannot escape, Alistair," Edwin taunted. "We are bound by blood and fate. The curse is ours to wield." But Alistair, summoning every ounce of strength he had left, growled in defiance. He could feel the power of the heart pulsing around him, offering a chance, a slim, desperate chance to end this nightmare. At that moment, Selene and her team arrived at the edge of the clearing, having tracked the werewolf through the forest. They watched in shock as the beast confronted the ghostly figure of Edwin Thornfield, realizing that this was their moment. Selene stepped forward, clutching an ancient tome in one hand and a silver dagger in the other. "Alistair Thornfield," she called out, her voice echoing through the clearing. "We are here to help you. We can break the curse, but you must fight." Alistair's eyes, still glowing with the beast's fury, locked onto Selene's. For a brief moment, his human soul shone through, and he nodded, an unspoken agreement passing between them. Selene began to chant, reciting the ritual of severance in a language older than the forest itself. The air crackled with energy, and the stone circle began to tremble. Edwin's spirit howled in rage, trying to stop the ritual, but the power of the heart was too strong. As Selene's voice grew louder, the werewolf let out a blood-curdling howl, its form flickering between beast and man. Edwin's spirit fought desperately to maintain control, but Alistair's will was stronger. The curse, drawn to the power of the heart, began to unravel, its dark tendrils retreating back into the ether. But just as the ritual neared its completion, a deafening roar echoed through the forest. The ground split open, and from the depths emerged something even more terrifying, a colossal, ancient beast, long dormant, awakened by the disturbance in the balance of power. The creature was unlike anything the Silver Dawn had ever seen, its form a grotesque amalgamation of wolf and shadow, with eyes that burned like molten lava. It was the true source of the curse, the entity that had empowered Edwin Thornfield all those centuries ago. Selene's heart raced as the monstrous entity turned its gaze upon them. The ritual had been interrupted, and the curse, though weakened, was not fully broken. The battle had only just begun, and now they faced a force far beyond anything they had imagined. Alistair, sensing the presence of the true evil behind his curse, mustered the last of his strength. He lunged at the shadowy beast, driven by a desperate need to protect those who had come to save him. The battle between the cursed and the ancient evil raged on, a clash of darkness and defiance. But as the fight unfolded, Selene realized that they were outmatched. The entity was too powerful, its ties to the curse too deep. They needed something more, something that could tip the scales in their favor. In the chaos of the battle, Selene's mind raced. There had to be another way, another spell, another relic, something that could end this once and for all. But as the creature bore down on them, the odds seemed impossible. And then, in the darkest moment, a figure appeared at the edge of the clearing, a young woman with fiery red hair and eyes like the stormy sea. She was a stranger to them all, but in her hand, she held a relic that pulsed with an ancient power. The relic, shaped like a wolf's head, glowed with a pure, silver light. Without a word, the woman raised the relic high, and the light engulfed the clearing, driving back the shadows and the ancient beast. The creature howled in agony as the light tore through it, unraveling its very essence. As the light faded, the forest grew still. The monstrous entity was gone, its power shattered, and the curse that had plagued the Thornfield line for centuries was finally broken. Alistair, now fully human, collapsed to the ground, exhausted but free. Selene and her team rushed to his side, but their eyes were on the young woman who had appeared out of nowhere. She looked at them with a knowing smile, then turned to leave, vanishing into the shadows before they could even ask her name. The village of Black Pines was saved, but the mystery of the curse's origin and the identity of the mysterious savior remained unsolved. The Silver Dawn had won the battle, but the war against the darkness was far from over. As the first light of dawn broke through the trees, Selene knew that this was just the beginning. Something darker still lingered in the world, waiting for its time to rise. And when it did, the silver dawn would be there, ready to face whatever horrors the night would bring. The story of Black Pines had reached a new chapter, but the intrigue of its ancient curse and the battles yet to come would continue. The end. The village of Black Pines seemed to breathe a sigh of relief as the first light of dawn washed over its shadowed streets. The werewolves had retreated, and the ancient curse that had gripped the Thornfield line for centuries was finally broken. Alistair Thornfield, now free from the beast within, lay exhausted but alive, surrounded by the remnants of the silver dawn. Selene stood at the edge of the clearing, her eyes fixed on the spot where the mysterious woman had vanished. The air was thick with the scent of earth and old magic, and despite their victory, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, something left unfinished. As the villagers cautiously emerged from their homes, murmurs of hope and disbelief filled the air. The nightmare was over, or so they believed. But Selene knew better. The true source of the curse, the ancient entity they had fought, was gone, but its lingering presence still clung to the air like a cold mist. That night, as the full moon rose once again, Selene found herself unable to sleep. She wandered through the silent village, her instincts on edge. The forest that bordered Black Pines was unnervingly quiet, its usual night sounds absent. It was as if the land itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. She stopped by the old Thornfield Manor, now a crumbling ruin. The windows were shattered, and the once grand halls were filled with the scent of decay. As she walked through the darkened corridors, a sense of unease washed over her, and she realized she was not alone. In the grand hall, where the Thornfields had once dined and danced, stood a figure tall, gaunt, and draped in shadows. Selene's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the face of Edwin Thornfield, his eyes glowing with a sinister light. "You thought it was over," Edwin's voice echoed, a dark, mocking tone that sent chills down Selene's spine. "You thought you could sever the curse, but you've only unleashed something far worse." Selene reached for her silver dagger, but Edwin merely laughed. "The entity you fought was only a fragment, a piece of the true darkness that lies within this land. And now it's free, untethered, waiting to consume everything." A cold wind swept through the manor, and the shadows deepened. Selene could feel the presence of something ancient, malevolent, and hungry. It wasn't just the curse that had been broken, it was a seal, a barrier that had kept something far more dangerous at bay. "You've opened the door, Selene," Edwin whispered, his form fading into the darkness. "And now, the true horror begins." As his voice faded, the ground beneath Selene's feet began to tremble. From the depths of the earth, she heard the faint sound of whispers, low, guttural, and filled with malice. The walls of the manor groaned as if alive, and the shadows seemed to stretch, reaching for her. Selene turned and fled, her heart pounding in her chest. As she burst out of the manor and into the night, she looked back to see the old building sinking into the ground, swallowed by a churning mass of darkness. The forest around the village came alive with movement, as ancient trees twisted and warped, their branches clawing at the sky. The villagers, awakened by the noise, ran into the streets, their faces pale with terror. They watched in horror as the forest began to close in on them, the shadows moving with unnatural speed. The curse was gone, but in its place, something far worse had awakened, something that had been waiting, dormant, for centuries. Selene knew there was no escaping it. The darkness was coming, and with it, the end of everything they knew. She turned to Alistair, who stood at her side, his face ashen. "It's not over," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We've only just begun to understand the true horror of Black Pines." As the last light of the moon was swallowed by the encroaching darkness, Selene and Alistair knew that their fight was far from over. The true curse had been unleashed, and it was only a matter of time before it consumed them all. And as the shadows closed in, a final, haunting whisper echoed through the village. Asterisk, asterisk, this is just the beginning. Asterisk, asterisk.